All right, so I'm going to do some uh, reaction videos. Uh, First, I'm going to do this reaction video to this a couple of news stories, starting off with the news from TYT on Josh Hawley. So, oh, let's get ready for seeing what's going on here.
American lawmakers are reconsidering the idea of sending additional foreign aid to Ukraine as it attempts to continue defending itself against Russia. Some Republican lawmakers think that that money is better spent in Israel, which is still attempting to overcome the brutal attack that it faced over the weekend as a result of Hamas. Now, Josh Hawley happens to be one of those lawmakers, Senator Josh Hawley, a Republican who put out this post.
Traitor.
Israel is facing existential threat. Any funding for Ukraine should be redirected to Israel immediately. And there is a similar thought process among some Republicans in the House as well. In fact, a number of Republicans in the House oppose aid for Ukraine outright, but they have used this attack on Israel as a reason to pull funding from Ukraine and instead redirect.
So that figures that the GOP and all of them want to support totalitarian, corrupt regimes instead of someone fighting for freedom. That makes sense. That's their playbook.
Directed to Israel. And if you look at the numbers in Congress in regard to the number of Republican lawmakers who want to pull support from Ukraine, I mean, it seems to be rising. Last month, 93 Republicans voted for an amendment to a military funding bill offered by Representative Matt Gaetz to bar all military aid to Ukraine. And that's up from 70 Republicans who backed a similar proposal by Gaetz in July.
Republicans
Representatives Marjorie Greene and Elise Stefanik have already publicly opposed a combined aid package to Israel and Ukraine, and they might be taking cues from their voters. Among Republican voters, support for Ukraine aid stands at 50%, a drop of 18 percentage points since July of 2022, and 30 points since the opening weeks of Russia's full-scale invasion. Democratic support stands at 77%, barely changed from 79% in the summer of 2022. Among independents, support has fallen 8 points to 60%. And you know, independents these days are the ones who make or break elections. So Jay.
So yeah, so the situations are very, very different. Ukraine did nothing to provoke Russia. Russia just said, "Hey man, like your land there, I'm gonna take it from you," and just attacked. There was no provocation there. Um, so that attack was just unprovoked, insane, and a clear totalitarian dictatorship attempting to just grab more land because they want their oil or something. That's that is wrong. So Israel and Palestine is a whole different story. Um, the attack by Hamas was horrible. It was should never have happened. But you can't say that was unprovoked. Hold on. All right, so um, the Ottoman Empire ruled what is now much of the Middle East. 1917, British foreign secretary said that they would establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Um, so Great Britain took over the Palestine after the end of World War One. Arabs vehemently opposed the Balfour Declaration, concerned that a Jewish homeland would mean the subjugation of Arab Palestinians. And that's what came to be. So Britain gave 56% of Palestine to establish Israel, right? And then stepped back and said, all right, y'all have fun. And Israel was established in 1947. So it started out, Palestine was here. World War I, there was a lot of fighting came up. As you can see, like French mandated Syria, Iraq was from Britain. So the West has been messing around in the Middle East for quite some time. But Britain was like, I don't know what to do with these people. So the UN said, okay, we're going to split it up this way. Jerusalem's going to be an international city. The beige is going to be Arab controlled, and the white's going to be Jewish state. How they thought that would work, I don't know. Those are not country borders. Those are just weird. So 1949, Egyptian occupied Gaza. Jordan controlled the West Bank. So that's Israel was there. West Bank was there. Jerusalem was kind of cut down the middle. After the 1967 war, Israel occupied a lot of territory. 1982, yeah, there was just occupied territory, because this is not actually Israel, but Israel is occupying it, basically being real dicks to the Arabs living in those areas. So now they have the Gaza Strip, and Israel has been just really, this is a wall around Gaza Strip, and Israel has been sadistic towards people living in Gaza. There are, it's been horrible. So yeah, there's Gaza, an observation tower, fence, no man land, another fence with razor wire, an observation tower, and wow, this is only farmers on foot, no vehicles, no stuff like that. So there's been lots of conflict. The Suez Crisis, the Six-Day War, surprise attack by Israel, and they defeated Egypt, Jordan, Syria in 6 days to take control of the Gaza Strip, the Sinai Peninsula, the West Bank, and Golan Heights. And they're considered occupied territories occupied by Israel. So, and Israel has not been a very good occupier. Think the British occupying Scotland, and the atrocities that were committed then. And there's been various attempts, basically by the Palestinians, to reclaim the territory that was just taken away from them, and to create Israel. So you can't really, I don't even know what to say, but look, so Palestine, when we moved our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, Palestinians protested and Israelis just murdered them. Now I know the attack by Hamas on Israel is horrible, but it is by far not unprovoked. As I mentioned at one point, Israeli military and border police forces are killing Palestinian children with no recourse. Nothing happens. They're just murdering these kids. And if I recall correctly, maybe 2015, 2014, somewhere, there were recordings of the Israeli soldiers just making light of it and making sport out of killing children. So this is not an unprovoked attack, and you can't. 2022 was the deadliest year for Palestinian children. As of August 22nd, 34 Palestinian children had been murdered by Israeli forces. So this is, it's not an unprovoked attack by any means, any measure. It is not unprovoked. It is not right to do unto them as they have done unto you, but you cannot ignore what Israel has been doing to Palestinians for decades when talking about this. It's unconscionable to just go, oh, Hamas bad guys. They are not unprovoked. So this is from Human Rights Watch, and I'll post this link under the video so you can read some of the details. And this is 2022 and 2023. This is not way distant atrocities committed by Israel against Palestinians. This is recent. So
ביטחונית. כל פלסטיני שם הוא מחבל בפוטנציה. עכשיו אם הוא מתחצף אלייך, אז...
Now, if he mouths off to me,
ואז מה שאפשר לעשות זה לשלוף אותו מהשכונה, לשים אותו בעמדה עם חייל, ואז לייבש אותו. בידיים אזוקות.
ומשם זה משטרה, ואז זה כבר לא בטיפולנו, כאילו.
They are treating it.
אני בתור חייל פשוט לא קיבלתי איזושהי פקודה את מי אפשר לעצור.
So in Hebron, the only mission is to guard and protect the Jewish community in Hebron. And with that, to allow the normal residents to live a normal life, clean of any Palestinians. So they have sterile rates. Hebron is a whole area very densely built up. Think about 850 Jews living in the middle of a Palestinian city. So what they want to do is, as an army, is to create routes that are sterile wherever they're settled. Sterile route is a route that is clean of Palestinians. The closer you get to a settlement, the stricter sterilization is. From this point on, Jews only. Why? The captain decided.
ופשוט צריך לתצפת.
Aware and attentive and looking around.
They're talking about how the board.
והמשימה השנייה זה באמת
Second mission,
לעצור
stop and search
לבידוק
every
כל
Palestinian that
פלסטיני
comes.
שמגיע.
This is stop like risk, stop and frisk, bigger level.
עושים חיפוש על מישהו שפשוט בוחרים מהרחוב, רנדומלי.
אנחנו בגדול מנסים, עוצים את כולם.
שם עליו קנה של נשק, בזווית, חייל אחר שניגש אליו,
So this is Israeli occupied territory.
כמה זמן שאני ארצה שהיא תקרה.
So yeah, that's some of the background that you need to be aware of. And I know mainstream media and everybody is saying, just live in the moment. Hamas attack was horrible, tragic, and you're wrong, and we need to obliterate them. No. That is not the case. You cannot ignore the atrocities and the horrible situation that Israel has visited upon the Palestinians. I'm not saying the Hamas attack was justified in its brutality, but it's understandable. It is, I don't see how anyone in good conscience can support what Israel is doing. Just the same, you cannot in good conscience support what Hamas has done. It's not an either or. They are both horrible. But Israel was given 56% of Palestine and shortly and violently took over 77% of Palestine. And it is a worse than apartheid kind of subjugation, constant harassment of the Palestinian people. So, I know Hamas is being called a terrorist organization. They may very well be. But I also know that terrorist is what the big army calls the little army. So, I don't know the solution there, but...
Hank, what do you think about this?
So, this is a very difficult situation because the reality is that the issue here isn't money. We give Israel an enormous amount of money. We gave them Iron Dome, which saved a lot of Israeli civilian lives, which I'm very proud of. What is the extra money going to do? They're going into to Gaza Strip, right? It's not like they need submarines or nukes or whatever. They need bullets. But they have plenty of money for that, and they have more money than militarily and provided by us than the rest of those countries combined in the region. So your heart goes out to Israel and you want to help. I don't know that this is the most productive way to help, but then people are going to say, oh my God, you're monsters. The answer is always money, and let's give them more money. But we already gave them all the money in the world, and it didn't protect them from this. The answer in this particular, for example, as opposed to, for example, Ukraine, who is fighting a much larger enemy and does not have anywhere near the budget that Israel had militarily, and the aid that we had given Ukraine is not anywhere near what it was for Israel. Now, the aid we have given to Ukraine to fight that war is a lot, right? And you could see where it's going, and you could see the Russian army reeling, right? So you could see with your own eyes that here it's not, I want to help Israel. I just don't see the point of more money. That's not the right help. Intelligence, we should give them, like you want to send them half the CIA to get as great an intelligence as you can, whatever you need to do, that makes sense, right? Let's get them help, but, and it's, look, I know Netanyahu is going to get his vengeance, etc., right?
Yeah, so that's a concern. The level of brutality they're going to visit on the Palestinians now is astounding. In retribution and revenge, which is going to lead to more violence and just keep it going for another 1,000 years. Unless they succeed in their genocide against the Palestinians. But Ukraine needs to win this war against Russia to stop all the Russian aggression. So just that needs to be cut off. Russia needs to be stopped, and we need to help Ukraine do it before it becomes a World War III situation.
At some point, we have to plead with Israel, because we're pleading now. We're not asking, we're not yelling, we're not demanding. We're pleading with them to take the moral high ground and not cause so many civilian casualties. And so that's another thing that I hope we can help them with. And again, to be
they've already been killing civilians. They do it for fun.
So the bombs that are dropped, I'm 100% against it on both sides. Hamas definitely started it here, etc. I want to be clear every time we talk about it. But the ground troops are better. Yes, they'll cause mass carnage, and they'll say, well, you'll say, what do you mean you ground troops are better? But it means they're trying to find Hamas instead of randomly bombing places they think Hamas might be, but there's tons of civilians there as well. So I'm in favor of the ground troops. Hate me if you want.
Yeah, and just to give you a sense of how much aid the United States provides Israel every year, it's close to about $4 billion a year. As Cenk mentioned, the United States funded the Iron Dome. And just to give you a sense of what the US has already committed to doing following what Hamas did over the weekend, let's go to graphic 7. Administration officials told lawmakers they are already expediting existing contracts for weapons Israel has purchased to give them a boost in the near term. The Biden administration also can use the presidential drawdown authority to provide additional weapons to Israel.
So I'm wondering how much we provide to Ukraine right now. So in comparison to the $4 billion per year that we give Israel to continue their monstrous attacks on the Palestinians, we have promised $679 million to Ukraine. Oh, so that's since 2000. So yeah, we're not giving Ukraine anywhere near the amount we're already regularly giving to Israel. So I agree with Cenk there. There's no reason to give them more money.
Providing additional ammunition and military aid to Israel. So that is going to happen. But if you take your emotions out of it and just simply look at the numbers and the amount of aid and which country needs it the most, I think it's undeniable that Ukraine needs the military funding more than the Israeli government does. But even so, the United States is still assisting the Israeli government in its response to Hamas's attack over the weekend. So, as we've said in every single story that we've covered on this matter, a lot of innocent people are gonna die. A lot of innocent civilians on the Israeli side died over the weekend. There are still Israeli hostages in Hamas's, they're being held captive with Hamas, and I don't know what the fate of those hostages will be. But one thing that we also know is that parts of Gaza have already been leveled, innocent civilians have already been killed, and there will be more carnage to come.
All right, so yeah, it is a horrible situation, but I am not on the side of Israel is all innocent in this. And I'm not on the side of live in the moment.
The president of Harvard, meanwhile, is speaking out days after a statement released by Harvard student groups on the Israel-Hamas war was widely condemned. The Ivy League university faced national backlash after the Harvard Undergraduate Palestine Solidarity Committee published a statement on Saturday blaming Israel for the deadly Hamas attack that targeted civilians. The letter was co-signed by 33 other student organizations.
Well, I mean, as I just said, this war has basically been going on since the 1940s, and Israel has been the aggressor. So Israel has occupied territory that is not theirs, and they are treating people inside that territory really horribly treating people for no reason. Hey, we're in your land and you're going to have to live by our rules. How much of that is a people supposed to take? There's a breaking point for everybody, every situation. And what do you do when you run out of options and nobody is actually doing anything to help? I read something Netanyahu was supportive of the two-nation solution, but was forced to back down from it. But I mean, that's bare minimum what we're going to have to do is get Israel out of the Palestinian nation. At least bring it back to the original 56%, because those maps seemed okay to me. But I mean, I have no skin in the game other than having an opinion about it.
Statement was criticized by school alumni, including lawmakers from both sides of the aisle. Lawrence Summers, a Democrat and former Harvard president, said he was sickened by the statement. Republican Senator Ted Cruz, a Harvard Law School alumnus, called the school's silence, quote, utterly indefensible. Yesterday, Harvard's president, Claudine Gay, finally broke her silence on the controversy, writing in part, quote, I condemn the terrorist atrocities perpetrated by Hamas. Such inhumanity is abhorrent, whatever one's individual views of the origins of long-standing conflicts in the region. Adding, while our students have the right to speak for themselves, no student group, not even 30 student groups, speaks for Harvard University or its leadership.
I mean, if you have stayed silent on the abhorrent inhumanity that Israel visits on the Palestinians on a regular basis in the occupied territories, occupied being the strong word here, then I don't think you saying things like this is appropriate. You can't stay silent on one atrocity and then flame up about another one.
Mike Barnicle joins us at the table. Mike, a statement from the president finally a couple of days later, but not really a condemnation of the statement put out by those student groups. A Jewish student, a doctoral student in Jewish history at Harvard, has an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, just one excerpt, quote, how can we share dormitories, classrooms, and ideas with students who would make excuses or even celebrate if we and our families were hacked to death by a Hamas terrorist tomorrow?
How can they live side by side with students who are completely and totally fine with Israeli soldiers snipering children standing at a bus stop on a regular basis? I mean, I am not a blind support of anything kind of person. The Hamas attack was horrible. What Israel is doing in the occupied territories has been horrible for decades. So Israeli soldiers have killed, what was it? I'll go back and check, but let's say 40 children from January to August 2023. Just killed them. I mean, some of them were throwing rocks at armored vehicles. That is, you don't have to kill somebody for throwing a rock at your car.
So that gives you an idea of the climate on campus. If you're a Jewish student, how you must be feeling right now, a Jewish student at several universities where we've seen some of this stuff. You know, for universities, Mike, that put out statements about every little wrong they believe that they see in the world, to not come out strongly against this stuff, I guess we shouldn't be surprised, but it's pretty shocking.
These are troubling times that we're all living through, Willie. And it's not just university campuses. It's not just Harvard University. It's in the halls of Congress. It's in various state houses throughout the country. And it's on street corners where people are talking about what happened this past weekend. There is a huge difference between the definition of militant and terrorist. A huge difference. And the idea that we live in a culture where there seems to be some confusion between militancy and terrorism. This was pure terrorism. Yesterday, we saw the President of the United States give perhaps the strongest, firmest outline of who he is, who we are as a nation in this troubled world that you're ever going to hear from a president. And good for Joe Biden, and good for Larry Summers, incidentally, who immediately, upon this weekend's rallies on the Harvard campus, came out strongly in support of common sense. This was an act of terror.
I don't know. Knowing what I know of the history of the place, this seems like you're just turning a blind eye to the reality of life over there. You're just turning a blind eye to all the atrocities that Israel commits on a regular basis against the Palestinians. You know, and being occupied by a hostile foreign government for decades who treat you like shit. Again, how much can a people be expected to take? And I don't know who can fix it. You know? But just continuing to let Israel get away with it without ever talking about it just seems as wrong as the Hamas attack on civilians. And
an act of barbarism that we saw over the weekend. And if, you know, God help the poor Palestinian people, but guess what? Their biggest ally is not Hamas. Hamas has been taking care. Hamas has controlled Gaza since 2007. They have done very little for the Palestinian people other than put them in constant peril because of one thing. Hamas is a terrorist organization.
Yeah, and Mika, if you look at some of the other statements, the rallies we've seen even here in New York City in support of what's happening right now, what just happened in Israel, the massacre of civilians, it's hard to see how it wouldn't be easy and quick for a university president to come out and condemn that immediately. What are you equivocating on? What's the question in your heart? You're worried about offending somebody?
How about fucking Israel has been tormenting these people for decades, starving them out. I mean, shit. This is just blind ass. I don't even know how to talk about this.
We're talking about the slaughter of civilians. This one should be easy. Some things are hard.
As opposed to the sniper shotting of children on a regular frickin' basis.
This one should be easy to condemn.
I completely agree. It's the reality of the moment. I mean, this is not to be put in a larger context. This is not to be explained in any way. There's no explanation for the evil.
Oh, bullshit. Lady, bullshit.
And this I think applies to members of Congress as well. You don't need to have Israelis in your constituency to see this for what it is, a terrorist attack. And I think university presidents across the country, to echo what we were hearing from the head of the ADL yesterday, need to watch Joe Biden's speech and need to look at what is happening there and call it for what it is, because there's free speech and then there is speech that really distorts the facts of the moment. Meanwhile,
distorts the facts of the moment? You can't. You can't just take one event and like isolate it. That's as wrong and unhelpful as what Hamas did. You've got to be aware of everything, right? You have to understand the whole context of the environment that this attack was bred in. You can't ignore history. If you want to be an honest person who says atrocity bad, you've got to call out both Israel and Hamas, because they are both responsible for atrocities right there in that area. The level of brutality and evil that Israel is visiting upon the Palestinian people on a regular basis, I can't say justifies, but it definitely explains. When a people are pushed to the brink, desperation, crappy things happen. And we can't ignore the history of that place and ignore what has been done to the Palestinian people, even in the face of an atrocity like this. And I've never changed my position on this, whether it was various acts of terrorism around the world. You can't ignore what drove the people to do that. I mean, when England took over Scotland and occupied it and committed atrocities, there were Scottish terrorists, right? When England took over Ireland and committed atrocities against the Irish people, if they fight back, they're terrorists. I don't know. You may have a side you prefer to win, but if you're going to be intellectually honest, spiritually honest even, you can't expect an abused people to never fight back. It's not right that Hamas attacked Israeli civilians, but when Palestinian civilians are being killed, brutalized, subjugated on a regular basis, what do you think is going to happen? What other choice do they have? Two wrongs don't make a right, but if you can't get anything done the right way, what choice do you have? I mean, there's an argument that this does hurt the Palestinian people. But I mean, has their situation been acknowledged? Has it been helped? Who is paying attention to this? And we're just throwing money at Israel. We're not sanctioning Israel for what they're doing to the Palestinian people. So nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody's doing anything for the Palestinian people or to try and resolve the situation or anything else like that. If we want to do anything, if the UN wants to do something, I mean, the two-state solution has got to be it. I mean, Israelis are moving into Gaza, occupying, they're expanding, and they're taking over, and the Palestinians are just being basically driven out of their homes, and their children are being shot, and they don't have near the resources or anything else to fight back. So what's the solution for where they're at? Like I said, you can't put your boot on a snake and expect it not to bite. So no, I don't think you can isolate this terrorist attack as a single event. You can't do that and still be an intellectually honest and spiritually honest person. You've got to recognize that Israel occupying Gaza and the other occupied territories and being just basically giant dicks about it, you've got to recognize that as a problem as well.